Good afternoon, everybody, and how are you? And welcome to Capuchin TV, especially to this program, taking care of your psycho-spiritual well-being. My name is Joyce Pius Segunjobi, Reverend Father, and I'm here with you again to continue on this journey of Lent and to know how Lent is, can relate to our health, our holistic health, in terms of our biopsychosocial, techno-spiritual, total health. So again, we've been looking at how we've looked at how health impacted or is impacting our physical health. We've talked about that. Last week, we also talked about our health and our relationship, how we need to relate, or especially in our communication, how do we communicate, how to communicate with people during this Lent, and not just during the Lent alone, and also beyond the Lenten season. So today we'll be looking at another aspect, which is actually titled, or we're looking at this area called the Lent and the marital relationship. Lent and marital relationship, and if you want to call it in a very straight way, you say Lent and sex. So I know some people will be like, could be scandalized by that, but it's still okay. It is what it is called, because sex is much more than just the issue of a marital relationship. It goes beyond a lot of things. So we'll be looking at the Lent and the sex. And that is basically because someone asked me recently and he said, is it okay to have sexual relations with one spouse during Lent? What do you think? Is it okay to have sexual relations with your spouse during Lent? What will you say, even as you are listening to me right now? Will you say yes? Will you say no? What is our requirement? What is it that we need to do during this period we need to take care of? So again, what do you think? What do you think about that? But I will tell you, for me, I can say yes and no. I can say yes, it's okay to have sexual relationship with your spouse during this period. And at the same time, I can also say it is no. But when I'm talking about yes or no, what does that mean? I'm going to be looking at that in this program today. Again, we are dealing with Lent and the sexual relations or marital relationship, and whether it is okay or not okay, whether it's acceptable or not acceptable, whether it is worthy or not worthy, whether it is holy or not holy. But I'll be dealing with this today, again, because when you talk about this marital relationship, it talks about the marital health, the well-being of the spouses in their marriage. And that is what we are looking at, and that's where we are addressing it in this program. And I'll be looking at that in two ways. I'll be looking at it scripturally, and I'll be looking at it psychologically. Again, I'll be looking at it scripturally, and I'll be looking at it psychologically. So as we continue to deal with this, we look at, first of all, we need to realize the fact that Lent is a time to be united with God. I repeat, in Lenten season is a time to actually retreat from various things we do before, from various activities. Even some people actually retreat from, or they reduce their length of work. You reduce it a little bit, and then you actually come into what we say, a better union with the Lord. And at the same time, to be united with God will simply means to be united with your significant others. Like Matthew chapter 25, verse 40 will say, whatsoever you do to the least of this little one, you do to me. And of course, like John in his First John in his letter says that you cannot claim to love God without loving your brothers and sisters or those who are around you. So the same way you can say that to be united with God is to be united with a significant other, and especially in these cases, your spouse. So when you are claiming to be united with God, should not be at the detriment, of course, of your spouse. In the same way, we also talked about Lent is a time to be intimate with God. Not just be united, to be really intimate with God. And of course, to be intimate with God is also to be intimate with your spouse. to be intimate with your husband and to be intimate with your wife, whichever one. And that is very important at this time to know that. So you cannot claim to be very close to God and you are not close to your spouse. So even when you have not been close before, Lenten season is a time to be close. But again, when it comes to this question of marital relationship, we need to know that Lenten season is not an excuse for you, and it's not the time for you to avoid or to dodge your marital responsibility and duties. Again, you don't say because I'm fasting, then I don't begin to relate with my spouse the way I ought to relate. You don't say because I'm fasting, I don't have to sleep on the same bed with my spouse. You don't say because I'm fasting, I cannot actually be intimate with my spouse. So don't let the time of Lent to be an excuse to not to do it. And of course, it is the time to be more dutiful and the time to be more responsible. Again, the time for you to be more dutiful and the time to be more responsible. I actually wish this one could have been talked about from the beginning of Lent, so that you can really look at it and know how you are going to, walk there or walk through the path of Lent this year. So, what I mean is that it's your responsibility and your duty. If you go scripturally, you begin to see that, like St. Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, from verse 3 to verse 4. St. Paul says, verse 3 says, the husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife. And it says, likewise, the wife should fulfill her marital duty to her husband. And in verse 4 he says, the wife does not have authority over her own body, but yields it to her husband. And in the same way, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but yields it to his wife. That's what St. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 7. However, he continues, because he said, you have that time together. You should know that that's why we said, two of you, you are one flesh and one body and whatever it is. However, in verse 5, he said, do not deprive each other except perhaps by mutual consent and for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer and fasting. Some version of the Bible will say, and to prayer. When you read King James Version of the Bible, it tells you for the prayers and fasting. And we know that during this Lenten season, those are two of the 3 or 4 pillars of Lent: prayer and fasting. So I repeat, do not deprive yourself or each other except perhaps by mutual consent and for a time, so that you may devote yourself to prayer and fasting. Guess what? Underline mutual consent. You don't say because, I'm fasting and I'm praying, so don't touch me. No. 2 of you need to agree. Mutual consent. 2 of you need to agree that, okay, look, during this Lent, we are not having sexual relations. During this Lent, there's no romance. During this Lent, and 2 of you are supposed to do it together. And he said for a time, meaning it's not something that lasts forever, but supposed to be for a time. You agree, okay, for 1 week or for 2 weeks or for the whole of the period of Lent, we are not going to be doing this. And he said so that you may devote yourselves. The scripture did not say you may discuss yourself. It said yourselves, meaning that 2 of you are supposed to be in the same mood of prayer and fasting. And if you want to abstain from it at that time, you have to mutually agree that you are not going to do it. Because abstaining from sexual relations is regarded as a form of sanctity and holiness for effective prayers. I repeat, abstaining from sexual relations is regarded as a form of sanctity and holiness for effective prayers. And you can look at it from, in Exodus, when Moses came down from the mountain to the people, he consecrated them, and they washed their clothes. And he said to them, that's it from Exodus chapter 19, from verse 14 to 15, he says, prepare yourself for the third day. Do not draw near to a woman. And to understand that also, that even when David had to, with his followers, wanted to eat the bread that is meant for the priest alone, that Jesus referred to, the priest replied, but there is some consecrated bread, provided that the young men have kept themselves from women. And David responded. That's from 1 Samuel chapter 21, from verse 4 to verse 6. And in verse 5, David said, women have indeed been kept from us, as is usual when I set out. And the equipment of the young men is holy, as it is even on common mission, and all the more at all time. So because of that, the priest gave them the consecrated bread that was meant for priests alone. He gave them to eat, because they have kept themselves from women, because there is a state of holiness. So it does not mean that women are the one making them to be polluted, but it is one of the practices they believe when you stay away from sexual relations, you can be better, be in a better state of life, so that you can pray well, you can serve God well at that moment. And you can go back to the same story that happened when you read the story of Uriah, in the 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 11, when David have to ask him to go home and meet with the wife. But he said, I'm not going to do that because we are in the wall, and I can't do that. The Ark of the Covenant is in the wall there. I can't do that because I'm not required to profane myself before the Lord, and wanted to fight for the Lord. So, and of course, like St. Paul says, each of you must keep how to control your own body in holiness and honor. That's 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 4. So when you look at it from that perspective, I will just tell you, okay, yeah, you can abstain from sexual relationship during Lent. However, we'll look at the other aspect of it psychologically, or even that spiritually, when we come back from the break.
Capuchin TV, your Catholic identity.
The Psychospiritual Therapy Institute, which we of the Luke Stera Leadership Foundation, in collaboration with Miss Joachim, have set up, is a project that I am very excited about, and I am very happy that I am part of the birthing of this project. It is aimed at healing of pastoral agents that run into problem on account of widespread trauma, on account of burnout, on account of addictions, and all kinds of problems that pastoral agents do have. But with this project of the Psychospiritual Institute, we shall now be training experts in psychospiritual therapy who will be available in various countries, various dioceses and congregations to help their colleagues who are in difficult life situations of an emotional and psychological nature.
Welcome back again to Capuchin TV, now to this program taking care of your psychospiritual self. Well-being, the program that runs every Thursday from 2:30 to 3, and we are here this Thursday. We've been talking about Lent and your health, and today we've been focusing on the Lent and your sexual relations with your spouse. And we've talked about, for the purpose of holiness, or for remaining holy, more united, why not actually disengaging yourself from your spouse? Why not fighting your spouse at this moment? Why not disagree with your spouse at this moment? Of course, you can both agree. That's what we say from 1 Corinthians chapter 7, from verse 3 to 4, that you need to, you can keep away a little bit, agreeing together for a time, and two of you, because of your fasting and you are praying, and those are two important parts of a Lent, you can say, we are not going to have these sexual relations. And we ended by quoting actually from 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, from verse 4, that says that each of you must know how to control your body in holiness and in honor. However, we also know that St. Paul says in the same 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 5 says, but then come together again, so that Satan will not tempt you beyond of your lack of self-control. And that is why he said in verse 4, for a time. It's not something, but I know there are people today who actually are in marriage, and then their marital relationship is nothing to write home about. For months, for years, they have not actually touched each other. For whatever reason that is best known to them, but you see, this actually makes the marriage more soiled, especially when the man is not paying attention to the emotional needs of the woman, or the woman also is using sexual relations as a weapon to punish the man. You know that when you begin to do that in marriage, you are opening your door, your windows, and many opportunities for the devil to encroach into your marriage, and it will destroy it, because your companionship are supposed to be expressed also in your sexual relationship. So it's not just about providing for your family. It's not just about cooking for your husband. It's not just about taking care of the children. Your two of you must be united. And you know that when many occasions, many of us pay attention taking care of the family, we forget that the basis of that family is our marriage. And so when your marriage is not working well, your family is in trouble. So we need to pay attention to that. So St. Paul says you don't have to just leave things to be that way. You have to know that after a short time, please come together so that you do not give the devil the opportunity. So in a way, Lent can be observed by abstaining from sexual relations. So that's what we are saying. Lent can be observed by abstaining from sexual relations. And on the other hand, it can be that same time of Lent is when you actually form or redeem your battered, you redeem your daunted, redeem your unhealthy sexual relationship. Exactly, maybe especially like what I just said, you have been taking, you have been denying each other for whatever reason. You have been denying each other sexual relations. You can actually say that during this Lent, you want to only use your fasting and prayer to come together, So couples who have been having challenges with their sexual relations should fast. I repeat, they should fast from denying each other and make amends. I repeat, they should fast from denying each other, meaning that they should return, because outside of Lent, they have been separated, they have not been having things to do with each other sexually. Now is a time to bond. And it is when they bond that God can actually listen to their prayers, because it is time to come together, it is time to agree, and so make supplications so that God can answer you. It is time to bond. And when you bond, God will answer you. But it's like what Jesus said in Mark chapter 18, verse 19. He says, "Again, truly I tell you that if two of you on earth agree about anything they ask for, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven." Underline, if two of you agree. So if husband and wife do not agree, not only on decisions concerning the children, not only decisions concerning your business, not only decisions concerning your extended family, what you want to do to your in-laws, not about ceremonies that you have, but we are talking about here about your own marriage, your own relationship as husband and wife, paying attention to each other, and of course sexual relations. You need to agree on that level, like we have been told earlier. And then if you do that, guess what? Your Father in heaven will hear you. That is when your prayers become acceptable. That is where your fasting becomes meaningful. Otherwise, if you are denying your husband or you deny your wife, you think God will listen to you at that time? I am not God to tell you whether God will actually hear or not, but it is obvious, because you cannot be having issue with your brother or with your sister, or not forgiving your husband or not forgiving your wife, and you say you want to pray well, and you say you want to fast well. Remember what Isaiah said? Isaiah said, it is our sins that have separated us from God so as to make us not to hear us. And guess what? Psychologically, by the time two of you do not agree in the house, you can't be happy. Your happiness cannot be complete. Your joy cannot be complete, because at the sight of the other person, you are distressed. You are distressed. So we need to work on that. So sexual relations, again, is one of the most powerful ways a couple realizes their oneness. When you really say you are together, yes. Because when you're on that bed, you're supposed to be united. And that is why the scripture says, "And the two shall become one." That, in Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, we were told that, so the man shall leave the father and the mother and so cling to the wife, so that the two, they are no longer two, but they are one. So that agreement comes in when you are together. So when you are praying during this Lent and you are fasting this Lent, when you are not agreeing sexually, you are not agreeing in other ways, then you are also wasting your time. So again, you can begin to fast from denying yourself from sexual relations. And of course, we know, according to James Baldwin, he says, not everything that is faced can be changed. But nothing can be changed until it is faced. So I'm saying this to those who are having challenges in their marriages. Remember this. Again, I repeat. It's not my word, it's James Baldwin's word. And it says, not everything that is faced, not all the challenges that you face in your marriage can be changed. I repeat, not all the challenges, not all the cheatings can be changed easily, not all the unfaithfulness can be changed easily, not about not paying attention to each other can be changed easily. However, there is nothing that can be changed until it is faced. So use this period of Lent to face it. When you are able to face the challenges in your marriage, you are able to face whatever is causing you not to have a healthy sexual relation with your spouse, then face it. Talk about it. And not just talk about it, because sometimes I see people talk about it, but they do nothing about it. So it is not just about talking, it is about doing something. It gives you an emotional wellness when you're able to talk about it. It gives you a psychological wellness when you're able to talk about it. It gives you a spiritual worthiness before God if you're able to talk about it. And of course, when all those things are working well, your physical body will respond appropriately and you'll be glad you did. Because there's a connection between your mind and your body. So again, not everything that is faced that can be changed. But nothing can be changed until it is faced. So face your situation, discuss it, talk about it, pray about it, work towards it. pray and work. Ora et labora. So, or orare et labora, or laborare et orare. Whichever way you want to put it, pray and work, or work and pray. Either way, you need to face the situation. But many times you don't face it. Many times you are angry with your husband or you're angry with your wife and you are not discussing it, yet you want to pray alone. You want to fast and you think you are doing it well. You need to be in concord. You need to be connected. So, as we continue with this, we need to also know that, like Songs of Solomon says, I like this passage, Songs of Solomon chapter 7, verses 10 and to 12 says, I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. Come, my beloved, let us go out into the country. Let us spend the night in the villages. Let us rise early and go to the vineyards. Let us see whether the vine has budded and its blossoms have opened, and whether the pomegranates have bloomed. There I will give you my love. Go and read it, Songs of Solomon, chapter 7, from verse 10 to verse 12. So you should be able to say to your spouse at this time, I promise to always be by your side, or under you, or on top of you, whichever way. And remember, love is beyond sex and physical touch. Love is kind words, a measuring smile, one that is not jealous and keeps record of wrongdoing. No, love is knowing without a shadow of a doubt that you will always be there for that person and they will always be there for you. So husband and wife, unite. And remember, honesty is the highest form of intimacy. Be honest to each other this Lent season. Talk about your differences and come together. Again, if you are doing well together before, you can fast from sexual relations. If your sexual relationship is not well, come together and be in serious, meaningful intimacy and be united so that God can hear you. So once again, thank you. This is Capuchin TV. And then I'll see you again next week. This program is run every Thursday from 2:30 to 3. And then my name is Joyce Pius Egunjobi, Reverend Father.
Capuchin TV